All right, folks, we are going to jump right in. We are going to talk about a certain disaster. That's right. We're starting out with a disaster segment. And we're talking, of course, in this case, about North Carolina. No, not California. We're going to get to that, obviously. But this is a time sensitive story here. Thousands in North Carolina face uncertainty as FEMA housing aid ends amid winter weather. That's right. Local ABC 13 News reports as of Friday, January 10th, around 3,500 households in North Carolina are set to lose their transitional sheltering assistance, TSA, from FEMA as winter weather storms in. FEMA's Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program has provided hotel rooms to thousands of Hurricane Helene survivors in western North Carolina. On January 3rd, FEMA began notifying families that were checked into hotel or motel rooms who are no longer eligible for the program. That's nice. So you give them at most a week's notice. On January 3rd, FEMA began notifying families that January 10th was the deadline. This was due to any of the following reasons. An inspection found their home is now habitable. They declined an inspection, or FEMA has been unable to contact the applicant to update their housing needs despite multiple attempts. As of January 6, more than 5,600 households were staying in hotel or motel rooms paid by FEMA. As many as 2,100 families meet the requirements for the program and will continue to stay in hotels provided by the agency. But that, of course, leaves 3,500 with a very uncertain future starting tomorrow at this recording. So Matt Van Swole has been reporting on this pretty consistently. FEMA is not answering the phone calls of Western North Carolina victims begging to extend their motel stays, because it's funny. So one of the criteria there is if they have been unable to contact people, but we know FEMA has been very difficult to contact themselves.
Yes.
Right. And so it's kind of weird that you would penalize someone for being difficult to get in touch with when we've heard thousands of stories of people trying to get in touch with FEMA with no success. So Mike McGraw, retired veteran, said, "I only have one option, to live in my truck until I can find some other place to live." It is, of course, very, very cold on the East Coast. Single-digit wind chills here in upstate New York this morning. The winter is pretty severe from a temperature standpoint. Up here, we've gotten a lot of snow as well. But from a temperature standpoint, it is a pretty severe and harsh winter so far. North Carolina, 16 degrees and snowing. So let's hear from some of these folks who are in dire straits.
There was nothing they could do. There was no, you're ineligible and we can't do anything.
I just don't see how it's right. You extend these people, but you don't extend us.
I have nowhere else to go but in the streets. They are not, I've called them several times, and they have not answered anything. They have not extended my stay. They just told me I had to be out by January the 10th.
The last day individuals and families can remain in a hotel is January 11th, but must be checked out by January 10th. And with the departure date right around the corner, many are now left wondering where they will go next.
I don't know what to do, so I got 2 more days, so I'm gonna sit it out.
Like Michael McGraw, a retired veteran now left with one option.
I live in my truck. That's it, until I can find somewhere, find a place or somewhere to live. And I have no friends. I mean, all my friends are long gone, you know. So I don't know what to do.
FEMA says extensions are available, but those are determined on a case-by-case basis.
There you go. So Matt tweets again, in 24 hours, FEMA will be kicking out 3,500 families in Western North Carolina out of hotels in the middle of a 14-degree winter snowstorm. Homeless shelters are now calling churches, scrambling to set up more beds as the number of people in shelters in Western North Carolina is likely to double tomorrow, which is, of course, going to tax the civilian infrastructure, the sort of mutual aid infrastructure that has been built out in North Carolina. And the people themselves have done a pretty impressive job. Here's a report highlighting some of that work.
Western North Carolinians hit by Helene where it often hurts the most, housing. Some families left with nothing except the clothes on their backs. FEMA putting up nearly 13,000 of them in hotels. But when the federal program ends on Friday night, many of them will have nowhere to stay. That's when Rogers and ABCCM come in.
In a lot of ways, we feel like we were prepared and designed for days like this.
So ABCCM stands for Asheville Buncombe Community Christian Ministry, and that's who this guy's with.
So we're ready.
Ready for a higher possible demand in resources than the nonprofit has ever seen before. And we're not just talking about somewhere to stay.
You see the food behind us. We can arrange groceries on a weekly basis. There's all kinds of ways to put together the right combination for each individual situation.
Rogers says ABCCM helps roughly 1,500 families a month. But in January, that number could soar above 2,000.
50% more than what we usually help.
ABCCM's 4 locations could be pushed to capacity. But Rogers says volunteers are standing by.
We've got 300 churches. It doesn't take long for them to say, we're here. How many more do you need?
In Buncombe County, Mark Liverman, News 13.
So that's Channel 13 News, which put out the written article that we just featured a moment ago. Matt also tweets, FEMA's confirmed 3,500 households will lose their transitional sheltering assistance. Videos from the nonprofit Beloved Asheville's, where this was apparently originally posted, show a car line 1 mile long for portable heaters and propane. So take a look at this. So once again, people have stepped up. These nonprofits seem to have stepped up. There seems to be some mutual aid, and that is going to be put to even further test, apparently, starting tomorrow into Saturday. Apparently, checkout deadline is tomorrow for 3,500 households, and the deadline to actually get out of the hotel or the shelter is going to be Saturday. And so people have stepped up. This is what it has come to. You know, it is kind of amazing to see the country sleepwalk through its own demise like this, you know, and this level of despair that has just set in is part of why, when pressed on, you know, the eve of the presidential vote, I thought maybe Kamala would win because I thought maybe the country is just that down on itself. Turns out they had a little fight left in them, but we see where that ended up. We see where that's taking us. And that wasn't a surprise to us here at this show, which is why we never promised you anything. But I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry to start the show off on such a negative note, but a real downward spiral. I saw Eric Rousseau give us a Rumble rant there. We'll get to it in a minute. I'll put it up on the screen. He says, America's circling the drains. It is. This is America circling the drains. And the fact that people, you know, band together and help each other is great. You know, that is the best of the American spirit. But we have to figure out a way to harness that good energy and that concern for each other into productive political movements, because there is no reason whatsoever why families should be kicked out of hotel rooms in the middle of winter following this apocalyptic natural disaster. If people had a clue how much money this government spends around the world for purposes of keeping our boot on the necks of other countries around the world, forget about countries we're even at war with now, just occupying other countries, military bases in all these other countries. The fact that you're going to nickel and dime 3,500 households in the middle of winter in 15-degree weather in the snow, like, you know, at a certain point, something's got to give.
Well, the whole government, really post-Reagan, has taken on the same tone as our mass incarceration complex. It's all punitive. It's all
Right.
punitive. It's all, hey, we're doing you a favor. You should have been able to take care of yourself.
Right.
You're really skating on thin ice here. So you've been getting help for more than 36 minutes. So you better call 17 phone numbers and learn how to tap dance to Let's Misbehave
Right.
for at least 7 minutes. And then you can continue to get aid for another half hour.
And when
It's-
you call us, we probably won't answer. But when we call you, you better answer.
You better answer, right?
Right.
So the whole tone of government is, what do you want from us? We want, all right, all right, all right, all right. Here's a couple of dollars. Don't come back and bother us again.
Right.
Now, if you look at how the whole system functions, there's a book I'm reading now, Capitalist Realism, that's really going to first principles, which I think we must. We're all in the matrix. We're all assuming that there's something natural, normal, or unavoidable about the way our society is structured. And there
Right.
isn't. There isn't. In many ways, the incentives of capitalism are killing us. They're killing us. If you look at this point at what's happening in LA and what's happening in North Carolina, well, that's in many ways the end result of decades of tax cuts for billionaires and corporations. It was all supposed to trickle down to us, right? Everyone was supposed to benefit. Well, this is the result. And not only is there no money and no resources, and what money and resources there are being held very close by the government, having a society that favors oligarchy, that favors wealth that way, informs the tone of the society. It
Exactly.
becomes, if you have a society that's structured like an aristocracy, you shouldn't be surprised when your government treats you the way aristocracies have historically treated peasants, like an inconvenient, an ungrateful mob whose demands upon their betters is, oh, well, this is very, very trying. Oh, fine. Give them some bread.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. And, look, we don't like to play these kinds of games because ultimately, we don't think it was of paramount importance who people voted for this time. And, we can't make the case that the Democrats have your back any more than the
This is
Republicans
happening
do.
under the Democrats.
We're learning that in Los Angeles right now, obviously.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to put
Yeah.
it in this way. I'm not trying to put it in terms of red versus blue. But I will say a lot of people who find themselves in these situations tend to be people who believe in that rugged individualism.
Right.
And I hope these are teachable moments. I hope these are teachable moments that banding together. Yes, I mean, it's great that this Christian nonprofit is housing people. I mean, I give them all the credit in the world for that. But at the same time, we have to recognize that it should be the role of the state. And by the role of the state, we mean the responsibility of each other to organize to make sure that we are not dependent upon charity in the event of something like this. There's no reason FEMA should be kicking them out. FEMA is a government agency. This government can afford to put 3,500 families up in a hotel through the end of the winter so that if another arrangement has to be made by that point, it can be done when it's, more than 20 degrees outside, right? It can be done when there isn't a line a mile long for space heaters and for propane, right? In case people are in really dire straits. And that assumes that there's even a shortage of money and resources, which if we prioritize the right things, of course, there would not be. And there is not. There is not. It is a warped system of warped priorities that has put people in this spot. And what are we at now? What was that? Early October? So now we're more than 2 months out. Was it early October or early September when those hurricanes hit? I think it was maybe end of September into October. So we're talking about quite a long time. Quite a long time since this happened. I could have those dates wrong. For some reason, I think I do. But either way, it's been at least a couple of months. And the fact that you still have people, I mean, you had people sleeping in tents. Some people didn't even get this shelter assistance. We're talking about the people who were fortunate enough to have it.
September 24th to the 27th.
Okay, so it was end of September. All right. So yeah, there you have it. There you have it. Just a horrible story. And obviously, you know, big credit to those organizations who are stepping up as best they can and doing the best they can under just horrible circumstances. I can hear the wind howling right now. I mean, it's freezing out. In the East Coast, it is really cold.
Yep.
Really cold now.
Yep. I like bracing kind of frigid cold, and I went out to get some stuff yesterday, and I was like, man, I am getting back inside as quickly as possible. I thought I was gonna take a long walk, sit on a bench. I hadn't been out because we're doing this show and Jimmy's show. I don't get to leave the house, and nah, man, I got what I needed. I came right back.
Yeah. Yep. It is really brutal out there now.
Please clap.